Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to our Srimad Bhagavatam Stuti series. Today's shloka number 36 of Bhishma Stuti from chapter 9, canto 1. Vyavahita pritana mukham nirikshya
Vyavahita pratana mukham nirikshya
svajana vadhat vimukhasya dosha buddhya
Svajanavadhat vimukhasya dosha buddhya
Vumate maharadatma vidyayah
Umate maharadatma vidhyayaha
Charanaratif paramasya tasya mestu.
Charanaratif paramasya tasya mestu.
Forward meaning translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Vyavahita,
Vyavahita,
standing at a distance.
standing at a distance.
Pritana,
Pratana,
soldiers.
soldiers.
Mukham,
Mukham,
faces.
faces.
Nirikshya,
Nirikshya,
by looking upon.
by looking upon.
Swajana,
Svajana,
kinsman.
kinsmen.
Vadhat,
Vadhat,
from the act of killing.
from the act of killing.
Vimukhasya,
Vimukhasya,
one who is reluctant.
one who is reluctant.
Dosha buddhya,
Dosha buddhya,
by polluted intelligence.
by polluted intelligence.
Kumatim,
Kumatim,
poor fund of knowledge.
poor fund of knowledge.
Aharat,
Aharat,
eradicated.
eradicated.
Atma vidyaya,
Atma vidhyaya,
by transcendental knowledge.
by transcendental knowledge.
Yaha,
Yaha,
he who.
he
Charana,
charana,
to the feet.
to the feet.
Ratihi,
Ratihi,
attraction.
attraction.
Paramasya,
Paramasya,
of the Supreme.
of the Supreme.
Tasya,
Tasya,
for him.
for him.
Me,
Me,
my.
mine.
Astu,
Astu,
let there be.
let there be.
Translation. When Arjuna was seemingly polluted by ignorance,
When Arjuna was seemingly polluted by ignorance,
upon observing the soldiers and commanders before him
upon observing the soldiers and commanders before him
on the battlefield,
the
Lord eradicated his ignorance
the Lord eradicated his ignorance
by delivering transcendental knowledge.
by delivering transcendental knowledge.
May his lotus feet
May his lotus feet,
always remain
may his lotus feet always
remain
remain
the object of my attraction.
the object of my attraction.
Okay. So, looking at the purport that Prabhupada writes, the kings and the commanders were to stand in the front of the fighting soldiers. That was the system of actual fighting. The kings and commanders were not so-called presidents or ministers of defense as they are today. They would not stay home while the poor soldiers or mercenaries were fighting face to face. This may be the regulation of modern democracy, but when actual monarchy was prevailing, the monarchs were not cowards, elected without consideration of qualification. So Prabhupada is saying, in those days, the kings were there, shoulder to shoulder with their soldiers. So in today's wars, the top men do not participate in the war. They sit it out, whether it's the prime minister, the presidents, the defense secretary. They do not actually go to war. It's the soldiers that go to war. So that was not the case earlier. As it was evident from the battlefield of Kurukshetra, all the executive heads of both parties, like Drona, Bhishma, Arjuna, and Duryodhana, were not sleeping. all of them were actual participants in the fighting, which was selected to be executed at a place away from the civil residential quarters. So the general public would not have faced any hardships or interferences as a result of the war that was about to take place. Unfortunately, in today's world, bombs are dropped on residential areas as well. This means that the innocent citizens were immune from all effects of fighting between the rival royal parties. The citizens had no business in seeing what was going to happen during such fighting. They were to pay 1/4 of their income to the ruler, whether he be Arjuna or Duryodhana. All the citizens have to do is pay the taxes. And Prabhupada is saying, what was the amount of the taxes? 25%. All the commanders of the parties on the battlefield of Kurukshetra were standing face to face, and Arjuna saw them with great compassion and lamented that he was to kill his kinsmen on the battlefield for the sake of the empire. So to the general citizens, it did not matter who was the king. Because whether it was Arjuna or Duryodhana, both of them would collect the tax of 25%. All the citizens wanted in return was good governance and good facilities so they could practice Krishna consciousness. Arjuna was not at all afraid of the giant military phalanx presented by Duryodhana, but as a merciful devotee of the Lord, renunciation of worldly things was natural for him, and thus he decided not to fight for worldly possessions. So when you are a devotee, you become detached from all things material. So in that mood of detachment, Arjuna says, actually, I don't want anything. Krishna, I have you and I'm very happy. But this was due to a poor fund of knowledge, and therefore it is said here that his intelligence became polluted. How is it that the devotee's intelligence gets polluted all of a sudden? They're already worshipping Krishna. But of course, that's the Lord's arrangement. His intelligence could not be polluted at any time because he was a devotee and a constant companion of the Lord, as is clear in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Apparently, Arjuna's intelligence became polluted because otherwise there would not have been a chance to deliver the teachings of Bhagavad Gita for the good of all polluted conditioned souls engaged in material bondage by the conception of the false material body. So Prabhupada is saying, the first disease is the skin disease, and the skin disease says that I am this body. My family belongs to me, my wealth belongs to me, my education is mine, my intelligence is mine. So it's that skin disease. And that's what Arjuna was afflicted with, the skin disease. They are my grandfathers, they are my teachers, mine, mine, mine. The Bhagavad Gita was delivered to the conditioned souls of the world to deliver them from the wrong conception of identifying the body with the soul and to re-establish the soul's eternal relation with the Supreme Lord. Atma Vidya, or transcendental knowledge of himself, was primarily spoken by the Lord for the benefit of all concerned in all parts of the universe. Here you can clearly see Bhishma had witnessed the conversation taking place between Lord Krishna and Arjuna on the battlefield. And he was remembering how Krishna was advising Arjuna, perhaps clarifying all his doubts. So 2 things that Prabhupada emphasizes here are, in those days, how did the warriors fight? The kings and the top generals were on the battlefield. They were not sitting on the sidelines. Second, Prabhupada emphasizes how Arjuna was bewildered and how Krishna actually helps him come out of that bewilderment. So as you can see in this particular verbet, Prabhupada is emphasizing the importance of the Bhagavad Gita. So therefore, we will quickly look at some shlokas that glorify the Bhagavad Gita. In the Gita Mahatmya, which was originally spoken by Lord Shiva to Parvati Devi, and then later on Adi Shankaracharya also narrates this. So, what is the importance of the Bhagavad Gita in our life? It is a book that purifies our intent. We were saying over the last few days and also the last few weeks, as we have been studying these various stutis, that the Lord is only looking at your desire and your intent. The Lord does not care much for what you're actually offering. Of course, the Lord reciprocates more when we offer more of ourselves in His service and in the service of His devotees. So, the Bhagavad Gita is actually helping us purify our intent, our desires. And in that context, there is a nice verse. We're going to look at 3 verses in the Bhagavad Gita Mahatmya, or rather the Gita Mahatmya, where Sripad Shankaracharya says, Malina mochanam pumsam jalasnanam dine dine, Sakrit Gitamrita Snanam Samsara Malanashanam. What does this mean? Malina Mochanam Pumsam. So how do we generally cleanse ourselves? By taking a bath every day. That is to clean the external impurities. But how does one clean the internal impurities? Oh, for that also, there is a designated way in which you take a bath. Just like you would take a bath in the Ganges River. The Bhagavad Gita is considered the Ganges water that is meant to purify your mind and your consciousness. Jalasnanam dine dine. So just like the Ganges water, if it was available to you, you would take a bath. Actually, you're supposed to recite a shloka every day when you take a bath, because if you don't recite that shloka, then even though you've poured water on yourself, you are not considered to be pure unless you recite the shloka that invokes all of the rivers at the time that you're taking the bath. It is called Ganga Snan. So you have to invoke that prayer when you're actually taking a bath. So simply by reading the Bhagavad Gita, by hearing the Bhagavad Gita every day, and by studying the Bhagavad Gita every day, your heart, your mind, your consciousness, everything is getting cleansed. Therefore, the Bhagavad Gita is purifying you. Hearing the Bhagavad Gita, reading the Bhagavad Gita is purifying you. And in the 7th verse of this Gita Mahatmya, very nice summary is provided on what a devotee should incorporate in their daily life. Ekam Shastram Devaki Putra Gitam, Eko Devo Devaki Putra Eva, Eko Mantrasya Tasya Namani Yani, Karmyepekam Tasya Devasya Seva. So, 4 instructions are given to us here. If at all we have to study one scripture, it should be the Bhagavad Gita in detail. We should just immerse ourselves in the Bhagavad Gita every day. It is said that the Vedas came from the breathing of Lord Vishnu. So it came from his breathing, from his pores. But the Bhagavad Gita has been spoken by the lips of the Supreme Lord himself. So the potency of the Bhagavad Gita is much more than the potency of the Vedas. So if at all we have to study one scripture, we should study the Bhagavad Gita every day. So this Gita is, the word Gita means song. So the entire Bhagavad Gita is a song of hope. It is a song of compassion. Krishna is so compassionate. He's always talking about us in relationship with him. He says, come to me, take my shelter, think about me, bow down to me. So it's a song of compassion. Eko Devo Devaki Putra Eva. If you want to worship one personality, you should worship Lord Krishna. Eko mantra tasya namani yani. If you chant the holy names of the Lord, then that is the best outcome for you. Karma pyekam tasya devasya seva. If at all you have to engage yourself in one karma duty, that duty is to worship Lord Krishna. And then there is this wonderful sixth shloka, sixth verse in the Gita Mahatmya that goes as follows. Sarvo panishado gavo dogdha gopala nandanaha partho vatsas sudhir bhokta dugdham gitamritam mahat. So Sripad Adi Shankaracharya is writing in the sixth verse that all the Upanishads are like a cow, and the milker of the cow is Lord Shri Krishna, the son of Nanda. Arjuna is the calf, the beautiful nectar of the Gita is the milk, and the fortunate devotees of fine theistic intellect are the drinkers and enjoyers of that milk. So here the Upanishads is compared to the cow. The cow is our mother. Lord Krishna is compared to the cowherd boy who is milking the cow. Arjuna is the calf that is drinking the milk, and along with Arjuna drinking the milk, all the other devotees of the Lord are also enjoying this nectar of the Bhagavad Gita. So we have to take shelter of the scriptures. And, sometimes we think, oh, these classes are so repetitive. The speakers are always repeating the same thing again and again and again. But something astounding is actually happening as you're listening to the same thing again and again. At first, your spiritual progression is quite linear. But later on, when you hear the same verses again and again, or when you read Srila Prabhupada's purport again and again, then your growth takes on a spiral trajectory. So slowly you're going upwards. And the higher you rise like this by studying the same scriptures, the same verses again and again. Studying is important, not just listening, because that is also purifying, but actually studying the scriptures, you get a higher dimension of understanding of the Lord's message to us. So new revelations come to us when we are reading the same scriptures and the same shloka and the same explanation, the same translation and the same purport again and again. You relish it more because you are also growing spiritually. Your consciousness is being purified. So even in the Bhaja Govindam, Sripad Shankaracharya writes, no, Bhagavad Gita kinchita dhita, Ganga jalalava kanika pita, Sakradapi yena murari samarcha, kriyate tasya yamena na charcha. Right? If you are reading this Bhagavad Gita and if you understand it, yes, it's like taking a sip of the Ganges water. The Ganges water is very purified. So at least once if you study the Gita, then Murari Samarcha, that person attains Murari or Govinda. And once he attains that Krishna consciousness, he no longer has to interact with Yama Maharaj. Because Yama Maharaj himself will lose interest in you. He will say, no, that's not the person like in trouble because he is already protected by the kavacha of Krishna consciousness. And therefore, the Gita is so effective in purifying you and connecting you to Krishna. So, you do not have to worry about death and being caught up in this samsara cycle. All we have to do is study the Bhagavad Gita every day. So the scriptures are compared to the tree in our Vedic culture. So the tree has trunks, roots, branches, leaves, fruits. So if you bite on the trunk, you're not going to get much taste. So sometimes the Gita For us, because we have contaminated consciousness, may seem as sweet as the trunk of a tree, which is not sweet at all. So initially, we do not enjoy studying the Gita because it's philosophy. It takes a long time to understand and unpeel the layers of meanings and revelations for us. But the more we read, the more we're getting purified and the more we are enjoying and relishing the Gita. So the actual fruit of the tree, Vedic tree, Vyasadeva says, Nigama kalpataror kalitam phalam. So the mango, the sweetness of the mango is actually Srimad Bhagavatam. So studying the Bhagavad Gita prepares you for appreciating and relishing the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is what Bhishma Dev is also observing here. He is recollecting the fact that the Lord has spoken the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. How the Lord rescues his devotees who may momentarily fall into the pool of ignorance. And how the Lord delivers Arjuna from his ignorance by speaking transcendental knowledge. And therefore Bhishma Dev is saying, may that Lord's lotus feet always be the most attractive thing for me. May my mind be drawn to that lotus feet of Govinda.
If you like our videos, please subscribe to our channel and turn on the bell notification. If you'd like to join our classes every day, please check the details in the description section of this video. We look forward to serving you.